We think of artificial intelligence as a modern miracle, code and electricity, thinking in ways we can barely comprehend. But what if I told you its true blueprint wasn't written in silicon, but sketched in ink nearly 200 years ago? What if the ancestor of your smartphone was not a calculator, but a colossal steam-powered machine of iron and brass, a machine that was never even built? To understand the dream of a thinking machine, we must first travel to a world without it, a world not run by automatic computation, but by human sweat and human error. In the early 19th century, the Industrial Revolution was roaring to life. Factories churned out goods, railways sliced across continents, and empires expanded across the seas. This new world was built on numbers. Ballistics tables for armies, tide charts for sailors, actuarial tables for merchants. Humanity's progress was tied to mathematics. But there was a dangerous bottleneck. Every single one of these crucial tables was calculated by hand. The term computer wasn't a machine, it was a job title. These human computers would work for months, even years, to produce a single book of tables. And because they were human, they made mistakes. A moment's fatigue, a lapse in concentration, and a single mistake, a single misplaced digit in a navigational chart could mean the difference between safe harbor and disaster. A ship with its crew and cargo could be dashed against rocks, all because of one small error made by a tired clerk thousands of miles away. This was the world that tormented one man in particular, a man who saw human error not just as an inconvenience, but as an enemy to be conquered. His name was Charles Babbage. Charles Babbage was a force of nature, a brilliant mathematician, a philosopher, an inventor, and a famously difficult man. He saw the universe as a grand computational engine governed by divine laws, and he was obsessed with order. He railed against the chaos of London street musicians, calculated the precise odds of biblical miracles, and grew pathologically enraged by the errors he found in the mathematical tables of his day. He knew there had to be a better way, a way to remove the fallible human mind from the process entirely. He envisioned a machine that could calculate with perfect, relentless accuracy. His first great design was the difference engine, a colossal calculator of over 25,000 parts, powered by a hand crank, designed to automate the production of those error-prone tables. He secured government funding, a monumental sum for the time, and began construction. But the project was a nightmare. The technology of the day could barely produce the thousands of identical perfect gears he required. His perfectionism caused delays, and his abrasive personality alienated his engineers and funders. After a decade of work and a fortune spent, the difference engine project collapsed. It was a humiliating public failure. But in the mind of Charles Babbage, it was already obsolete. For in the midst of his struggle, he had a far grander, more revolutionary idea. He asked a profound question. What if a machine could do more than just execute one preset calculation? What if a machine could be programmed to perform any calculation? This was the Analytical Engine, the conceptual leap from a calculator to a true general-purpose computer. It had a store to hold numbers, what we would call memory, and it had a mill to perform the calculations, what we would call a processor. It was a breathtaking vision of a programmable mechanical brain, and it was almost completely ignored by the world. But it was not ignored by everyone. One person understood, perhaps the only person on earth who could. Her name was Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace. The daughter of the infamous poet Lord Byron, she was a gifted mathematician, a brilliant mind, in a society that rarely permitted women to be either. Introduced to Babbage, she was not just impressed by his engine. She grasped its true, profound potential in a way that even Babbage himself had not fully articulated. She saw beyond the mere calculation of numbers. In her extensive notes on the engine, she wrote that it, quote, might act upon other things besides number. The engine might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music of any degree of complexity or extent. She saw that it could manipulate not just quantities, but symbols. This is the foundational concept of computing. And then she did something truly historic. To demonstrate the power of the engine, she wrote a detailed step-by-step sequence of operations for it to perform a complex calculation. In doing so, Ada Lovelace wrote the world's first computer program. She became the first programmer. But the story does not end in triumph. The British government refused to fund this new, even more ambitious engine. The technology was too far ahead of its time. The vision was too grand. Charles Babbage would die a bitter, disappointed man. Ada Lovelace would die young from illness. The Analytical Engine was never built, and their revolutionary work was almost entirely forgotten for a century. A dream of brass and steam, lost to the footnotes of history. But ideas are more resilient than machines. A century later, in a new world teetering on the brink of another war, pioneers like Alan Turing would independently conceive of a universal computing machine. When they eventually unearthed the forgotten work of Babbage and Lovelace, they were stunned. They found that the core principles of their new electronic computers, the separation of memory and processor, the power of programmable instructions, had all been laid out 100 years prior in the designs for a mechanical engine. The echo of that unbuilt machine is all around us. Every time you use a smartphone, every time you search the internet, you are using a device that operates on the very same logical principles envisioned by Babbage and Lovelace. The Analytical Engine was never forged in iron and brass, but it was built nonetheless. It was built in the language of code, in the glow of silicon, and in the digital architecture that underpins our entire modern world. The mechanical dream of the 19th century became the digital reality of the 21st, a testament to a vision so powerful it simply refused to die.